everyone. Thank you very much for joining. Um, I will just let everyone sort of come into the room, and then a few rules, if that's okay. So if I keep off, that would be Shelley, and I'll hand over to her in just a moment. Shelley, for those who don't know her, she lives in Dubai. She comes from Essex and she's been over in the Middle East for a few years now, but she has clients globally. She's here with us today to discuss mindset and obviously more importantly, how to be courageous. Now, courage obviously means different things to everyone. It could be like me, you're a bit trepidatious about flying. I've definitely been on flights where I've had to hold someone's hand next to me, which is obviously a little bit embarrassing, but kind of any port in a storm. And I think the tonic for me was really someone telling me that there's, and I'm not sure how true this is, but there's more planes in the air than there are birds in the air at any one time. Though I've not really fact checked it, but I think you get the drift that sometimes it's about mindset and being positive. And I think about it again with one of my friends from home, like she had a sign with Winston Churchill on and KOB written underneath in initials when she broke up with a boyfriend. And I always thought it was like her mum had sent it to her and made her put it above the kettle just as a daily reminder. And then I think, Shelley, I told you about that rugby player that I'd heard about at Jackson who'd injured his spine diving into a pool, but has had this like phenomenal recovery. And it must have just been like so tough and arduous. And now he's climbing more mountains than most of us. So he's clearly got the right attitudes. And I think obviously everyone's struck by the courage of like refugees or those subjected to war or genocides. I think you mentioned you were just in Armenia, Shelley, and sometimes you really have to go to these places to appreciate the gravity of the situation, like see the bullet holes in the Polish cities, like see the war graves in France and the mass graves in Cambodia. And obviously, that's courage on a huge level, but there's courage on a smaller scale, like those, or a more personal level, like those undergoing battles with cancer, those who just struggle to get out of bed, or those who have, like lost someone in their lives or had a miscarriage and just have to find the strength to keep going. So children are a little bit included in that, when you fall off your bike or you fall over skiing, you've just got to kind of get back up. So I guess on that note, I'll pass over to Shelley to tell us more.
Thank you. I'm going to share screen straight away if that's okay. She says, hoping that technology does what it's supposed to do. Can you see? Yes, you can, because I'm also here as a... let me just go right. Right, okay. So thank you, everybody that is here. I know some people are still coming in. So it's absolutely great to be here. Thank you for such a great introduction there, Mary. I am going to talk about courage. I'm going to give it a slightly different spin. And if anyone's sitting there thinking about all those incredible examples of courage that Mary's just shared, I'm going to make it really real today, okay? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me in a second, but very, very briefly, I'm going to talk to you about what I call the courageous mindset. And I'm going to really practically talk to you about how you can rewire your thinking for success. And this will all make more and more sense as we work through. I am Shelley Bosworth. I'm business and mindset coach. I work with founders, leaders, and their teams to build courageous, high-performance mindsets so that they can break free from limiting beliefs and achieve greater results. And I want to be really clear. A lot of the work I do is not just professional, but it's actually personal stuff too. I'm going to talk with you today about building a courageous mindset, what I mean by building a courageous mindset. I've been running my business now for just over 4 years, and this has kind of evolved from all of that time and all of the work with all of the clients and the teams I've worked with, realizing that under everything that we do, and you probably know this, many of you will have heard this before many, many times, but at the core of everything we do is our mindset. Now, people come to me as a coach all the time with goals and basically say, I want to make this happen. But my work evolved really quickly when I realized the common thread was not that anyone didn't know what they needed to do, it was that they were stopping themselves doing it. So my passion, if you like, is helping people break through the stopping of themselves and doing the things that they want to do. So I am, as I said, going to talk to you about building a courageous mindset and how you can rewire your thinking for success. So let me just start by giving you some context on who I am and a bit of background. I won't bore you too much, I promise. There's a QR code there. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, let's connect. In short, I spent 25 years in the corporate world, I worked across retail and hospitality. I started a very long time ago at Harrods, actually. It was the first business I worked for. And then I went from the sublime to the extreme, and I went to work for Woolworths for many, many years, if anyone remembers the beautiful Woolworths. Across the years, I moved from retail, where I worked, as I said, Harrods, Woolworths. I did many years with Tesco. And I moved into hospitality, food, beverage, bars, restaurants. And my last corporate role, and I'm just going to fast forward it because you don't need all that detail. You can go and check me out. My last corporate role was with Haven Caravan Parks in the UK. I was head of food and leisure, and essentially I was responsible for all of their bars, all of their restaurants, the concept, the menu development, the team development, the whole piece. That was in 2015 when I joined that business. In that time as well, I'd met my now husband, and we got married in 2015. Now, many people that start their own businesses will share with you a pivotal moment. Ours was a bit of an elongated one. But in short, in 2015, my father-in-law was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. He was 62 years of age, and sadly, he deteriorated very quickly. And by 2018, he didn't know who we were. He couldn't do anything for himself. And in the summer of 2018, he passed away. 7 months, 8 months later, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she passed away within 11 weeks. Now, I share that not in any sense of worries me. That is the pivot moment of our lives. I was heading for 40. The first 4 years of our married life hadn't been quite how we'd planned. And I was suddenly questioning everything. We'd just gone through significant personal loss in a very short space of time. And so I worked with a coach. Now, I learned a lot in that process. I didn't actually decide there and then that I wanted to leave my corporate career and start a business. I knew no one that ran a business. My whole life had been in corporate. My friendship circles were corporate. I hadn't even considered the possibility of running a business. But I did say that I wanted to train as a coach, and I wanted to do this on the side. By 2019, I had qualified as a personal performance life coach in the UK. I was coaching in and around my corporate role, and I soon realised that if I really wanted to do something with that and make the changes that my husband and I had decided we wanted to make, because we'd just been through so much, then something would have to change. And I guess that's the first time I realised that. So I decided that I would leave my corporate career, 25 years. And in December 2019, I stepped away from the corporate world, ready to take on a new year, a new decade, and a new venture. Now, we all know what happened in 2020, and we've all got our stories to tell from there. Within a year, things were starting to settle a little bit, and I had been growing the business. And as Mary said, one of our goals, one of my husband and my goals, was to live internationally. So we moved out to Dubai in 2023, and we have been here ever since. And the last 4.5, 5 years now, we're in 2025. The last 5 years, I have learned more about myself than I think I learned in the previous 25 years. And I was really fortunate. I worked for some incredible businesses that really invested in personal development. I've learned so much about running a business. I've also learned just how much from that 25 years has been very, very useful here. But I came into this thinking that I knew what I was stepping into, and realizing that actually my mindset was the key to everything. So it was the first year of real work on my own mindset that naturally evolved my work. And I started to tailor in mindset with all of the business development, the life coaching that I was doing. And as I said, I now work predominantly with founders, with a lot of businesses and their teams, on understanding our mindset. Because at the heart of it, I'm still an incredibly practical coach. So yes, I talk about mindset, but I come from a really practical place about how can we put this into practice in real life. So that's just a little bit about me. Let's say, let's connect over on LinkedIn, and you can find out more by just giving me a shout. So before I go into it, I just want to ask, I just want to also say, if you have any light bulbs or anything, please pop it in the chat box as we're going through. I can see the chat box. I've got 2 screens. You might notice where my eyes are doing that. But equally, I will try and pick up any questions at the end should they come up. There will be time for questions. But I'd like to ask if I could have a volunteer. Now,
so you might need to take yourself off mute.
I can be a volunteer if helpful.
Lovely. Is that Sarah Grant speaking?
It is, yes.
Hello, Sarah. Okay, thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for volunteering. And here's the good news. I'm not going to ask you to do anything. What I am going to say is to say thank you for speaking up, stepping out and saying, yes, I'll volunteer. If you send Mary your details and you're happy for her to share them with me, I will give you a complimentary call after this and you can pick my brains on anything you want that would help you. Okay?
Thank you.
That's okay. I want to say thank you to you for volunteering. What I want to ask everybody else who's on, and what have we got? We've got 50 people on here with us. When I asked that question, when I said, can I have a volunteer? What did you think? How did you feel? I'd love for you to tell me in the chat box, what were the first things you thought? What were the first feelings that came up? Yeah, bit nervous, anxious. I did this very session this morning live in a room, keep telling me. And we had about 80% of the room just put their eyes straight down to the floor. Like, if I don't look at her, she won't pick me. The reason I open with that is because actually I gave you one simple request. Okay, can I have a volunteer? But I gave you no information. I didn't tell you what I was going to ask you to do. I didn't tell you what was going to happen if you did volunteer. And very often what we do, well, in fact, this is how the brain works. When we don't know what's going to happen, we fill the gap. And more often than not, we will fill it with a more negative thought process. Now, I'm going to be anxious, but quickly turn to I will. I love that. The reason I throw that in at the beginning is to get you to notice straight away. The first thing you do is you have a thought, and it's the thought that then dictates what you do or don't do next. And I'm going to take you through that in a second. The thoughts are very often very protective thoughts. So I've just seen, Chris, I don't want to expose myself to something I don't know about. Exactly. Now I'm going to talk to you about how the brain works. But I also want you to think about, so Sarah, who goes, yeah, I'll do it. I'm in. I've just given her a complimentary call after this. She can pick my brains on anything. How often do we hold ourselves back from things because we don't know what we might get out of it? We don't know what might be about to happen. And through, let's be honest, a little bit of fear, we hold ourselves back from incredible opportunities, never knowing what might actually come as a result. Now, it's just one simple little example, but it's to get you thinking straight away about your thoughts. Everything starts with your thoughts, most of which we don't even notice. I asked you to really think about, I'm going to use the word think and thought a lot. I asked you to think about, what did you think when I said it? This whole session is building a courageous mindset, rewire your brain for success. You have to program your mind for success. And that's what I am going to share with you today. It starts with you. And you can share this with your teams, your people, your friends, your family, but it all starts with you because you are the only person that you can truly have any influence over. I'm going to share with you the theory, but I'm also going to give you some really genuine practicalities of how we do that. So I'm going to cover with you today the science, a little bit of science and the reality of mindset. And I've just started that reality piece. I'm going to talk to you, share with you how patterns and beliefs are quietly running your life. And then I'm going to take you through why courage, not confidence, is the thing that shifts everything, and share with you my courageous mindset formula to rewire your brain for success, which is really simple for you to take away, because I want you to be able to leave here today with a really, really practical next step that you can apply immediately. Okay? So let me ask you another question. Do you have goals? Right now, who here has got a goal, be that a personal goal or a professional goal, maybe a couple of both? Yes. Okay, great. Maybe you don't call them goals as well. I'm very conscious that not all words resonate for everybody, but essentially, I am asking if you have something that you would like to do that you're not doing, something that you would like to have that you don't currently have, be something, feel something that you're not currently being or feeling. Who here set goals at the beginning of the year? And not necessarily a New Year's resolution. And I guess well, not guess, you did. So Amy did, yep. How are they going? Who's smashed their goals so far this year? I know I go fast, sorry, and I have to let the chat catch up, so apologies. No. Oh, Frederic, I think Frederic is absolutely smashing goals. Brilliant, time to set some more. Great, getting there, work in progress. Okay, great. It's brilliant to have goals. I am a massive fan of goals, okay? And as I said, let's just be really clear. I know some people don't like the word goals. Most people are okay with it. But if you don't, a goal is simply the desire to achieve something you haven't yet achieved. It's a desire to fill a gap between where you are and where you would like to be. Now, if you're smashing your goals, well done. What I hope is today helps you smash them even further. If some of your goals are feeling a little hard going, that's okay. That's normal, by the way. I set a lot of goals and I haven't achieved all of them. And some of them are feeling a little hard going. And I absolutely keep it real when I'm delivering any of my sessions, okay? Now, let's be honest, most of us have something that we want to achieve, something we want to do that we're not doing, something we want to have. And very often we have goals and we don't make as much progress as we would like to, or as quickly as we'd like to. Or sometimes we get started, we get into some momentum, and then we stop. And when that happens, and I said earlier on, it's very rarely because we don't know what to do. And let's be honest, we live in a world where we can find out what to do pretty damn quickly because there's hundreds of thousands of people and a ChatGPT that will give you some answers. It's usually because something else is going on. And that's what I want to help you have awareness of and understand, because that's courageous mindset and that's how we rewire for success. But to do that, we have to be really clear what success means. And we have to be really clear what success means to you, because it means something different to everybody, okay? Now, the definition of success is the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. Now, all of you that have shared with me in the chat that you've got goals, brilliant. You've all got different goals. And even if some of you have got what might seem like the same goal, you've got it for different reasons. You've probably got different measures of what that goal looks like and what success of that goal looks like. So in order to even think about rewiring your brain for success, which is why you're here, you need to be very clear what success actually means to you, because it's a big word, but it does not happen by accident. Success starts with you knowing what you want, what success actually is, and why it matters to you. And then, and this is why I'm so passionate about the mindset work, it's actually all in the person you need to become to have the success you want to have. In today's world, let's be really honest, too many are measuring themselves on other people's versions of success, and worse yet, then trying to achieve other people's versions of success. So we have to get really clear what our version of success is. And that's really easy to say, okay? Because we are influenced by parents, by friends, by partners, by bosses, by the business. But we do have to be really clear, and social media, how did I miss that off the list? We have to really know what we want, why we want it, and then we can get into the person we need to become. Because that's where the rewiring of our success, rewiring of our brain, our mindset comes into play. I truly believe that any one of us can have any level of success that we wish for. And I still wish for levels of success that I'm not at yet, but I believe it's available to all of us. And I believe it becomes even more available to all of us when we do the work on ourselves that I'm going to share with you. There are normal people out there doing exactly what you want to do, having exactly what you want to have, being exactly what you want to be. It's not an accident. They've just decided to do things slightly differently. And I'd say they've probably got a slightly more courageous mindset than perhaps, and I'm going to put me in the bucket here, than we have all of the time. So let me take it back a few steps, if I may. I've used the word mindset several times today. And most people think that to get a different outcome, I just need to do something differently. And we do need to do something differently, but we have to come back a couple of steps earlier. So I've asked you if you've got goals, whether you've achieved your goals, or whether maybe you have worked on your goal, got to a point and got a bit stuck. Many of us have goals that we've set before, if we're really honest, and we keep trying. And we keep keeping them on the list, and we keep thinking if we just try something different, then we'll get there this time. Or they're taking longer than we ever hoped or expected. Very often we carry the same goal or some version of it through a length of time. But the real part that's holding us back is us and our mindset. Now, we need to start thinking about the goals that we've got. Are they versions of something we've had before? Or are they the same goals that we've been carrying for a period of time? And why haven't we made progress? So it says on this slide, does your life ever feel a bit like Groundhog Day? Have you ever found yourself saying things like, haven't I been here before? Why is this happening again? Why do I keep doing this? And then this can be personally as much as professionally. In fact, it probably plays out more in personal stuff than in professional stuff. Now, there's a real piece about being honest with ourselves. We live our life in patterns. Sometimes we call them habits, and sometimes they're good, but sometimes our habits aren't so good. Patterns are habits, but I want to use the word patterns because there are some silent patterns that we often don't notice. Essentially, we very often keep working towards the same thing, the same goals. We keep telling ourselves we need to do different things, but actually we keep coming up against the same block, the same hesitations, the same excuses, maybe even the same justifications of why we're not achieving. Now, it can be really simple things like not having the difficult conversations we need to have, not doing the things that we don't like, not asking for the opportunity, the promotions, the pay rises, the price increases, not saying no. There's all manner of things, but we have patterns. And what I really want you to start thinking about is if you are honest with yourself, when you think about goals or things you've been trying to achieve or things that you've been working towards and haven't got to yet, is there a pattern? Do you have a pattern in terms of why you don't actually get there? What is it you keep telling yourself? Now, most of these patterns we don't notice, and I'm doing quite a helicopter view today, and I'm going relatively fast. So I may sit on your shoulder for the next 24 hours or so as things start to come to the surface. These patterns are running the show, and they are not random. They come from beliefs. Beliefs are simply stories that we have told ourselves so many times, they feel like facts. Now, I shared this morning, and I'm going to share a personal anecdotal example. So 25 years in the corporate world. I have no idea if anyone from my corporate background is here, so this could get awkward. But it's about me, and that's the point. It all starts with me. I spent many years of my corporate career working all the hours under the sun. I was the first in, the last out, because I thought if I show them how committed I am, if I work all the hours, they'll see how good I am. But every year, every 3 months or so, I would say, something's got to change. I can't keep these hours up. I'm exhausted. I was always feeling like I was teetering on that edge of burnout. But I was responsible for me. The pattern was that I would convince myself that I needed to work all those hours in order to be good at what I did, to be seen as good as what I did. There was a really clear pattern there, but underneath it was a belief that I have to work hard to be recognized for being good at what I do. You have to work hard to get anywhere in life. In fact, I can hear my dad's voice as I'm saying it out loud. And this is what I mean about the patterns are underpinned by beliefs that we learn. And I'm going to talk to you about beliefs in a second. So maybe you've got something that you've said you're going to change, you're going to do differently, you're going to achieve, but actually you're still holding back. You're still repeating a pattern, which is why you're not achieving the goal, which is why nothing's changing. There's a wonderful phrase, nothing changes if nothing changes. Something keeps getting in the way or stopping you. You have to start to identify the pattern. And when you identify the pattern, we can take it to the next stage of really asking what's underneath, because there's probably a belief in that too. Now, as I'm talking, and I said, please share in the chat box, but also if anything is kind of like, if you're having any light bulbs, please scribble them down as you go. And if you've suddenly noticed or realized a pattern, write it down. You might be able to work it through all the way through this session. So I want to talk about mindset, just give you my description, if you like, of mindset, what it all means, and why it's so powerful, and this underlying piece that's coming back to patterns in a second. This whole session is about courageous mindset. Your mindset, I'll come back to that in 2 seconds. That's just popped into the chat box. Okay, so your mindset, really, really simply described. Your mindset, the setting of your mind. Your mindset is your beliefs about you, the world around you, and your place in it. When you start to understand what mindset is and how your brain is working, the game changes. It really does. And this isn't like a flick of a switch piece. This is ongoing work. And I know lots of people bang on about mindset these days, but I just want to help you be really, really clear what it is, how you can understand yours, and how you can therefore move forward much faster. So mindset is the way you think about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. It's what you believe is possible for you and, quite frankly, everyone else. Your mindset is built of all your beliefs, and your beliefs come from every experience, every interaction, everything that has ever happened, occurred in your lifetime up until this moment. So your brain, I want to be really, really simplistic here. Your brain is your brain, by the way. You are in control of it. They're your thoughts. We don't often think that. We often think that everybody else has got an influence on our brain, but actually it's yours. If I said to you, think of your brain like a busy head office, okay, with lots of different departments, and each department has a very specific job, and they all work together. This is a great, well-oiled head office. They all work together to help you think, feel, move, and survive. Your brain's job is to keep you alive. Now, I'm not going to talk about all elements of the brain, but I'm going to just pick out 3 areas of the brain really, really briefly. You've got the prefrontal cortex. I want you to think of that like the sensible boss. It's the front part of your brain, right behind your forehead, and it helps you make decisions. It helps you plan ahead. It helps you focus. It helps you control your impulses. So like I said, it's a sensible boss. It's the part of your brain that says, let's stop and think for a second. Deeper in your brain, you have what's called the hippocampus. This is where your memories are stored. It's like the basement archives of head office, okay? And every single file of every single transaction, project, everything this business has ever tried to do, i.e. the business of your brain, all your memories are stored and sorted in the hippocampus. It's constantly filing away. Right now, it's filing away this woman who's banging on about the hippocampus to you, okay? It's what helps you remember what happened this morning, yesterday, maybe 10 years ago. We don't remember everything. There's a lot of information in there, okay? But everything is stored away. And then, and there's, as I said, there's lots of parts, but then you have the amygdala. Now, I want you to think of the amygdala like your security guard on the doors of the office. The amygdala is your brain's built-in alarm system, and it's always on the lookout for danger. It's constantly scanning your environment to decide whether you are safe or not safe. Now, someone's asked in the chat about whether beliefs are true, actually real, or always something that can be overcome, and I'm going to start to reference that now. The challenge with the amygdala is when it senses a threat, real or imagined, it reacts exactly the same way. It's fast and it's damn powerful. It's much quicker than your thinking brain, the sensible boss, and it triggers your fight, flight, or freeze response. Okay, so every time something happens, like some strange woman that's doing this session saying to you, can I have a volunteer, please? Your amygdala goes into action and says, hang on a second, we just need to think about what happens in scenarios like this. And it's really quick, and it will have gone running away. And potentially you might have a memory stored somewhere of when, I'm making this up as I go along, maybe you've seen someone volunteer and it didn't go well, or you volunteered, or you've been brought out to the front of something. Now, you might not have, not all memories are bad, okay? But if it senses a threat, it reacts, and it doesn't know the difference between real or imagined threat. Then we have this final piece, which is just like when you know about this, you can leverage this to your heart's content. So why have I got a picture of Google on there? The reticular activating system, this is basically the filter, or that really efficient PA that stops all the crap getting to the boss. The reticular activation system is at the base of the brain. It's a bunch of nerves at the base of the brain, and it acts like a filtering system. It decides what information gets your attention and what gets ignored. It filters based on what you are thinking. And what you are thinking is what you already believe. So it's filtering based on what you believe, what you focus on, or what you think is important. So if you believe that something is not achievable, your brain filters out anything that is not relevant to your thoughts or not achievable. Hopefully this is making sense. If you believe you're not capable of something, it will show you, it'll filter out elements of capability and actually bring in all the moments that reinforce that you are not capable. Now, if you can shift your belief, your thoughts, the filter changes. So I'm going to use a really simple example that you may have heard before. I'm going to make an assumption that most people have drive a car, have bought a car at some point in their lives. And the best way to describe the reticular activation system is that when you go and buy a new car, you go to the garage. I'll use my red Mini from the UK as the example. Went to the garage, chose to buy a red Mini. Get on the road to come home, and damn, I saw more red Minis that day than I'd seen in a really long time. There were no more red Minis on the road than there were when I went to the garage. But because I am thinking about the red Mini I'm going to buy, my reticular activation system is filtering. I'm not interested in silver, blue, black cars. I'm not interested in big Land Rovers. I'm only interested in Minis because that's what I'm thinking about. It's like when take out social media that's filtering because it's listening. Women often say that if they are trying for a baby, everywhere they seem to look, everyone's pregnant. That's the reticular activation system. Your brain, its job is to keep you alive. Its job is to keep you safe. And what it does is it spends its entire existence helping you prove yourself right. It's your brain. It's your thoughts. You can change them. So I want you to think of the reticular activation system like Google, because it takes in everything, but it only shows you what it thinks is relevant, and it only shows you what is relevant based on what you are thinking about. Now, we have to be quite courageous to face into some of this, because this means getting honest. This means we need to start realizing what we are thinking that is not helping us. Okay? But that is how our brain is working all the time, and we are in control of it. So I like to do things that people remember. So if you come away from this and you go, oh, she was the woman that talked about the bear, I've done a good job today. BEAR, this is an acronym. BEAR stands for Belief, Emotion, Action, Reality. Now, just for clarity, I didn't make up this model. I just made it about BEAR, so we make it really easy to remember. There is lots of research around how our thoughts create our feelings. It's our feelings that drive our actions. It's our actions that create our reality. I'm going to go slower and talk that through. When I first started to learn all of this was when I started to see my patterns. And then I started to help my clients see their patterns. And I started to help teams see the patterns that were coming out with the resistance to change in the business. And what we were able to do was take it back step by step to beliefs, specifically beliefs that are holding us back from stepping forward, from entering into new ways of working, from entering into the new things we need to do to get the results we want to get. And I wanted to create a way that was really easy to remember this. This loop, belief, emotion, action, reality, it is playing out all the time. A belief is a thought that you have over and over again and you believe to be true. It becomes your facts. How do you recognize your trends? By paying attention. I'm going to share that with you in 2 seconds, or about 2 minutes. So I just want to share this model with you so that you can always come back to it, because this is the loop that when you get your head around this, changes the game. When you are born, you know nothing. You come into this world, and this is certainly what we are told. This is what science has told us so far, until someone says that's not the case. In fact, this is what we believe, unless one day someone shares something with us that changes our belief. That's a really good example. So we are born, we come in, we know nothing, we don't communicate, we know nothing about ourselves, we don't have opinions, and we certainly aren't carrying a load of labels. And then we become toddlers, and we're soaking up information, and we're learning to do things. And we learn from parents, we learn from other kids around us, we learn from the things we watch on TV or on the iPad, we learn from kindergarten, from primary school, and then we grow into children and we go to school and we learn from teachers and we keep watching stuff on TV, and we're taking all of this information in. Now, it is said that by the age of 7, we have learned everything about who we are, how we're supposed to behave, what our place in the world is, and how the world around us operates. And we spend the rest of our lives proving that to be true. Remember, your brain works to confirm what you are thinking. So we are a product of what we are taught. We are a product of our environment, of our experiences, of the examples that we see. And every single one of us has different beliefs. Some of us have similar beliefs, but every one of us has then beliefs about ourselves. Mindset, your thoughts and beliefs about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. Everything starts with your beliefs. It is your belief that creates a feeling, an emotion. We are emotive beings. It's the emotion that drives the action or sometimes the inaction. When I asked for a volunteer earlier on, some people's thoughts went straight to, what will she make me do? Which means underneath there was a belief that it might not be a nice thing. It might put me in a position of exposure. It might make me embarrassed. Embarrassment is a feeling. It evokes a feeling inside you. So the action is, I don't put my hand up to volunteer. So the reality is, I don't get what she gave to Sarah Grant. That's a really basic example. But if you start to understand this and apply it through what you believe about yourself, what you've learned, how those beliefs make you feel, how they influence your choices and the things you do or don't do, that gives you the results you create. Our beliefs are very rarely actually rooted in fact. They're a byproduct of experience, examples, environment, everything you've seen and learned. Remember those patterns? I said they were underwritten by beliefs. You can change the belief, which means you can break the pattern. And that's where the courage really starts to come in. So how do you recognize what your trends are? You pay attention to you. You get really honest. You probably already know. So if maybe you have a pattern, let's go back to me, a pattern of taking on all the work and not saying no. That might be underpinned by a belief that is, if I say no, they'll think it's because I can't do it. If I say no, they'll think it's because I'm not good enough. If I say no, they'll think I'm not capable. Now, those are live examples. They are absolutely things I used to think, underpinned further by a really deep belief, because I was taught you have to work really hard if you want to get anywhere in life. And that can start to manifest and play out in all kinds of ways. This isn't a flick of a switch piece. It is deep-rooted stuff. But once we start to understand one piece at a time, we can start to shift one piece at a time. And this is what I help individuals and teams with all the time, understanding and realizing the beliefs underneath all of it are what are actually hindering you from achieving your goals. Intuition is incredibly valuable. Yes, it's trusting yourself to hear yourself. So maybe, and if stuff is coming up for you again, scribble, make a note. Like, what's one thing, if you're really honest, as you're hearing me talk, like, is there something popping to mind now around a belief that you might be holding on to that's actually shaping your reality right now? And as always, I'm just gonna have a sip of water. Now, I position this courageous mindset, and I've used that word courage a few times. Now, I'd love to know, what do you think of when I use the word courage? Let me know. I'm sorry, I've got an itch. Let me know in the chat box what you think of when I use the word courage. What comes to mind for you? Because when I first started taking challenges, love that. When I first started this work, I ran a lot of workshops and I marketed a lot on build your confidence. I'll help you be more confident. And I realized I had it all wrong. Okay, coming back to that, I promised Mandeep we're coming to that. So I realized that actually focusing on confidence was the wrong thing, because here's what my learning was in that first year. Confidence comes from repeated success. Confidence is the feeling you get after you've done something, preferably well, or certainly not as badly as you thought you were going to do it. Confidence comes from the completion of the action and seeing the result. If you think about when children are learning to walk, they build their confidence by keep giving it a go. Courage, I think of Joshua, love that. Courage, and no one's definition of courage is wrong, by the way, because actually it's really important to understand what a word means to you. So I'm going to share what I mean when I talk about courage. I mean, a courageous mindset is about taking the action even when you feel afraid, even when you're unsure, when you don't know what's going to happen, when you don't know what the outcome might be. I guess, to speak in a cliched way, it is choosing growth. And I think someone's just mentioned the comfort zone in the chat. It is choosing to step out of the comfort zone. It is choosing progress over perfection. We've all heard that phrase. But it does take courage to do things differently, because we like to stay safe. We like to be, our brain loves stability, security, okay? Its job is to keep us safe. So actually it takes real courage to face into deep-rooted beliefs that are holding you back and need to be changed. Because change is scary. It takes courage to do anything differently, but it's not the same as confidence. Courage comes first. Confidence comes second. Courage is what gets you started. Every goal that you have not yet achieved probably needs a little bit of courage, because it probably needs you to do something you haven't yet done. And you don't have the confidence to do that because you haven't yet done it. That's not a bad thing. That's about understanding the difference between confidence and courage. And too many people put a label around their neck saying, I'm just not confident, or I need to be more confident. You need to be more courageous. Courage is what helps us say no. Courage is what helps us set boundaries. Courage is what helps us not be the first in the office and the last one to leave because we're good enough. Courage is what helps us have the difficult conversations. So as I'm using the word courage over and over again, I'd love you to think about, and again, share more for yourself than for me, what could you achieve if actually you were more courageous? Because I said at the beginning, everything you want to do, someone's doing it. Someone's got it. Someone's being it. And they may not realize they've been courageous, but they've done something that you haven't done. And the trap that too many people fall into is waiting to feel confident before they take the action. So we think that I've just got to do something differently, but we don't have the confidence to do the thing differently. Confidence is the result. Taking the first step is the courage. So this is all good and well, but you're thinking, how do I do that? So I just want to share this with you really quickly. Here's how most people live their life. I've been explaining to you briefly and top line that basically beliefs are the hidden scripts of our lives, okay? And they come from everything that we have learned, everything we've seen, done, been, experienced, heard, listened to, all the words up until this moment. Most people are living their lives right here, right now, in the present day, and acting as a result of the cause and effect of the past. Okay? The past has created every belief you have about yourself, the world around you, and your place in it. The current is a representation of everything you believe. Now, that will also include the beliefs you have that are good. All right? Just to be really clear, not all beliefs are bad. We have good beliefs about ourselves too. But here's what happens. What we do is we predict the future based on the beliefs that we have right now, and a lot of those are based on the past. I hope that makes sense. And I remember someone sharing this with me and realizing the past, it's happened, it's done, it doesn't even exist anymore. It only exists in your mind. It only exists as a memory. Remember all those memories that are stored away? The future hasn't happened yet. And most of the time, the version of the future that we imagine is a projection of our past experiences. And we're missing a fundamental piece. Courage and a courageous mindset is about acting right now in this present moment. In spite of fear, in spite of doubt, in spite of uncertainty. And courage in this current moment is what allows you to disrupt the patterns and the beliefs to create the outcomes for the future that you actually want, the goals that you have. So how do you do that? I said I was going to share with you the courageous mindset formula, and I am, okay? And it's really, really simple. I'm not saying it's easy. I am saying it's simple. So a few have asked in the chat box, well, how do you do this? And what do you do here? And this should answer that. This is really simply the courageous mindset formula, as I call it. You catch it, you challenge it, you change it, you commit and celebrate. I'm going to walk through really quite quickly because I've shared already a lot of this. What do I mean by catch it? So that's what I've been talking about, awareness. How do I spot the trends? You have to get really honest with yourself. You have to pay attention to you. We spend so much time paying attention to what everybody else is doing, but actually, how often do we truly listen to ourselves? Now, a bit of that is intuition, a bit of it is honesty. Awareness is the first step of change, but it's not enough on its own. You have to listen to your thoughts. What did you really think when she asked for a volunteer? What are you really saying to yourself about those goals you're trying to achieve? What are you telling yourself? Because that is the belief. So you have to catch that. Nothing can change if you do not have awareness. Don't try and capture all of it. Start with one thing. If you are working on a goal, come back a couple of steps and really start to notice every time you're working on the things you need to do to achieve that goal. What are you actually thinking? What are you actually saying to yourself? Because we all talk to ourselves, by the way, that's our thoughts. Okay, so that's that first bit. That's where I've been raising your awareness to actually, what have you learned about yourself, the world around you, and therefore what have you learned to believe? Then what we need to do is challenge it. So what I mean by challenge it, and someone asked earlier about real or imagined, is that thing that you are thinking really true? So that belief that you have, how do you know that's true? How do you know that the woman that asked, I'm going to use the volunteer example, that when she asked you to volunteer, she was going to, like, and you sat there in that moment, how do you know that she's going to ask you to do something that's going to really, really exposing or embarrassing or like really awful? Is what you are telling yourself 100% true? And I'd add into there 100% of the time. I use this quite a lot as an example. My dad called me a bad loser when I was about 6 or 7 years of age. And I carried that label all the way through my life. Now, it's not blame on my dad. I was being a bad loser at the time that he called me it. And my sisters jumped on the bandwagon and I became known as a bad loser in the family. I did not play games. And I took that through my life with me. And I went away for a weekend with some friends when I was in my 30s. And other people's words and actions absolutely impact you in your belief system because you pick them up and you take them with you. And that's where you challenge them. So let me use this as a great example. So my dad called me a bad loser and he meant it with the best intention because he actually didn't want me to behave in the way that I was behaving. When I was in my mid-30s, I went away for a weekend with some friends and they all got out, they got a game out and they were playing at the table in this lovely house we were staying in. I didn't play because I told everyone all my life that wanted to listen, I'm a really bad loser, I don't play. I picked that label up, I put it around my neck and I carried it with me all the way through. But when I realized this, and I noticed that that's what I did, then I challenged it. I'm actually not a bad loser. I was a bad loser. I have been a bad loser, but I'm not a bad loser 100% of the time. There are many examples in my life where I have not been a bad loser. I was actually really good at team sports at school. I wasn't a bad loser then. So actually what we have to do is challenge the belief with some new truth. Because what we do is we pick things up, we carry them along, and we spend our lives proving that to be true. So I went through life telling everyone I'm a bad loser, I don't play, and actually disregarding any form of evidence to the contrary. In order to challenge your belief, so how do you mitigate it? You have to show yourself the possibility that actually you're telling yourself a fib, or what was once true might not be true anymore, or what else could be true. What is true today? Remember, the past doesn't exist anymore. It only exists in your mind. So actually, if you take a snapshot of today, am I a bad loser today? No. So you have to catch it and then challenge it by introducing the possibility that actually our belief is untrue. It's not 100% true 100% of the time. And there could be two truths at the same time. It could be that I have been and have the potential to be a bad loser, but I'm not always a bad loser. So there is another truth that I am not a bad loser. I am someone who likes to win. There's a truth. I am competitive. There's a truth. But that doesn't mean that I'm also a bad loser. I really hope that example helps a little bit. Because once you've caught it and challenged it, that is how you can change it. So you can rewire your thinking. In fact, the only person that can rewire your thinking is you. What you need to do is when you notice that you are holding on to a belief that is not helping, you need to ask yourself, what do I need to believe instead? Now, what I am never going to suggest is you lie to yourself. But what I'm going to say is what you need to do is consider a new belief and pick up that evidence from the challenge process that shows you this could also be true. And this would be much more helpful to believe. So actually, we need to really notice the things that we're saying to ourselves and reframe those thoughts. I may have been a bad loser. I'm a very competitive person. That can be a strength. I may have a fear that I'm not good enough, but I've got loads of examples of where I am good enough. We have to give ourselves some different thought patterns. You might be wondering why there's a picture of a pathway through a forest, and I like to kind of give really good visual analogies. Our brain is made up of millions of neural pathways. They're like trails in your brain. Every time we think something, a neural pathway connects, and we think the same things over and over again. That's how they become our beliefs. So every time we think the same thing, that neural pathway gets stronger and stronger and stronger. The more you think a certain thought, the more that trail gets used. Okay, so let's think of it like the pathway through the forest. If you want to change how you think, you need to build a new trail. And this analogy came to me back in COVID, actually, when I was out for one of my daily walks, and I was walking through the local woods, and a tree had come down. And we'd all been walking the same path. It wasn't an official path. It was just a path we'd all trodden down. And the tree came down. So guess what? We started walking around the tree. And within 10 days, we had a new path because no one had moved the tree. No one tried to climb over the tree. Everybody walked around the tree and created a new path. Repetition, showing yourself through catch it, challenge it, is how you can show yourself a new thought process. I'm not going to ask you to lie to yourself. I'm simply asking you to ask yourself what could also be true. Remind yourself over and over what could also be true. And that is how you can start to rewire your brain. Now, you may have heard the phrase, what you focus on grows. You may remember I talked about the reticular activation system earlier. If you show yourself different evidence, your brain will work with you and start filtering in line with what you now want to think and believe. And it gets easier and easier and easier. I said this is simple. I used the word easy there. I know this, there's a lot of information here, and this isn't a one and done. This is ongoing work. I am heading for a big number in my age category, and I've got a trolley load of beliefs that I'm still working through. But knowing this means I can see them for what they are, navigate more quickly, and shift the unhelpful beliefs more quickly than I ever have before. So catch it, challenge it, change it. They're the absolute keys. Now, the challenge is a lot of people get stuck in that cycle, and actually things aren't really shifting. You have to commit to yourself and take real personal responsibility. Those goals you told me about earlier, why do they matter to you? What does it really mean to you to achieve these goals? Because you need to commit to you to make the shifts and changes that will get you to those goals. Otherwise, you're going to just continue the same loop, the current belief, emotion, action, reality, belief, emotion, action, reality. You need to commit to making the shift, to catching, challenging, and changing. Now, I said here, start small. So small it seems crazy. So small it seems ridiculous. So small it's a no-brainer. If it feels too big, it is too big. It might be about doing something slightly differently to show yourself that you are able to, which then enables you to have a new belief because you've just shown yourself. Awareness is the first step. You need to know what your goals are, what success is to you, what's actually holding you back right now. Catch, challenge, change, and then make the commitment to yourself to build a new pattern, a new habit, to show yourself that you can. Because remember what I said, that then brings confidence. The elusive confidence, which then propels us further forward than we ever imagined. And I add this in the end. It's really important that we celebrate when we are making shifts and changes, however small they are. Now, I recently read, I've not changed the slide, sorry. I recently read a book, The Gap and the Gain. You may have heard of it. This is, I really recommend this if you've not read it. Dan Sullivan, the author, The Gap and the Gain. And in short, the principle of the book is that most people spend their lives measuring the gap, i.e., where we are versus where we're trying to get to, the goal, the ideal, as he calls it, but it's the goal. And all we're ever looking at is, I'm still not there. There's still so far for me to get there. That's the gap. And what that is doing is feeding your negative beliefs. Now, it's important to have goals. I'm a coach. I love a goal, okay? We want to absolutely know where we're headed to. But the principle of the gap and the gain is measure backwards. Measure what you have achieved. Show yourself the gain, because that will propel you towards the goal. The gain shows you what you are capable of. The gain shows you what is possible. So it's always, always about measuring where you have come from and where you're going to. Now, if you can change that mindset shift, it absolutely changes the game, because you move at speed, because that is building your confidence too, because it's showing you what you are capable of. Remember, confidence is the evidence of repeated success. And the ripple effect of this is phenomenal. This knowledge, used and applied, will, can, and does help you achieve the success that you dream of, the goals that you want to achieve in your business, in your life, in relationships. It ripples through. It will help you support your teams, your children if you're a parent, your friends, your family. Don't try and coach people, but when we shift our mindset, that ripples out in our conversations. My point is that this truly can be life-changing. And I come from a place of truly learning that this is life-changing. So to recap, if you really want to rewire your mind for success, the Courageous Mindset Formula will help you do that. Pay attention to your patterns and your beliefs. Catch them. Really get honest and notice what is it you are thinking and telling yourself. Challenge those thoughts, those beliefs. Are they really true? Is what you are telling yourself actually true all of the time, right now, here in current day? Change the belief. If you change the belief, the pattern changes, which means the feelings change, which means the actions change, and your reality changes. But all of that is underpinned by commitment to yourself and personal responsibility, and celebrating every damn step along the way. So that would then lead me to say to you, as you sit here now, and I've gone rather fast, what courageous mindset, what one courageous mindset shift do you need to truly achieve your success, whatever that means to you? Who do you need to become? It's not just about doing something differently. It's about who you see yourself as, so that you feel that person, so that you act as that person to get the reality that you dream of. So I found a quote recently and I wanted to share it. And I'm going to just leave it here because you have to read it a couple of times to really get it. The doing is only as good as the being doing the doing. And I remember the first time I found this, I was like, hang on a sec, I've got to read that again. This is just a reminder. I said really early on, most of us know what we need to do. Now, we're either doing it and not getting the results we want, or we're not doing it because actually we're telling ourselves we can't. This is a reminder that strategy, action, effort, the doing will only go so far if our mindset, our belief, ultimately our identity that we hold of ourselves aren't aligned. I used to say, if your mindset and your actions aren't aligned, it's like trying to drive a car with one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator. You are going nowhere. You can follow all the right steps. You can know everything you need to do. But if you have a mindset of not able, self-doubt, fear, or limiting beliefs, you will play small. You will burn out, or you'll self-sabotage. And that's why we need a courageous mindset. The doing is only as good as the being doing the doing. And then if you think about some of the examples that Mary shared at the beginning, that's about true courageous mindset thinking to achieve the things that you want to achieve. So will you think differently, act therefore courageously, and make the impact you want to on your life? Will you step into the courageous mindset? I really hope that's been helpful. I have covered a lot, I know. So I'm just going to put out there now, let's connect if we're not connected. And please, I will take any questions and I'll have a quick look in the chat box now. But if you, in the next 24, 36 hours, or I think of something, please send me a message, because I know I've shared a lot of information there. And what can often happen is it kind of percolates under the radar and then suddenly comes out and you're like, oh, I just noticed that. So please feel free to reach out at any point. But I'm very, very happy to take any questions at all.
Does anyone have any questions they want to put in the chat box? Shelley's obviously happy to hang around and answer some, if so. If not, we can look at some of the ones that were sent through when people signed up to Zoom.
Hey, I've got a question.
Yep.
So hi, I'm Cass.
Hi.
So I've got a question. So as a woman in the workplace, and not to make this about sex, but it's just my perspective. I've been told in my junior career things about myself, which actually I've learnt are not true. However, the challenge I now face is more trying to deal with other people's belief systems counter to my own, in terms of what they believe about what actually in most people would be perceived as courageous behaviours, but actually viewing those as negative. How do you propose that, as someone who's being perceived negatively when displaying courageous behaviours, you deal with that sort of situation?
Okay, great question, Cass. Thank you. So give me a second while I just process my thoughts, because I want to word this correctly. And I've kind of got two answers, if that's okay. The first answer is, I guess, a bit of a reality that says you can't change someone else's beliefs. Okay. And what I mean by that is most people, including ourselves, we're projecting our own beliefs in everything we're doing. Okay. That's everything I've just kind of talked about. And that, what I'd almost say to you is, if you can almost have some compassion for the fact that actually what they're really displaying for you is their own beliefs, probably more about themselves and their thoughts about the world around them. Okay. Now that might not be particularly helpful for you at that point, but just start there in the, you can only take responsibility for you, your brain, your thoughts. Okay. We cannot change the way people think. We can influence. So what I might say to you as my second part of the answer is, what if you could really tap in from a courageous mindset perspective and have a different conversation and think about, how could I consider what I know to be true for me, and how could I position that, and could I be courageous enough to therefore have a conversation? But you have to go into a conversation knowing that you are only responsible for the input to a conversation. You cannot control what someone takes or does with anything that you put out. You can only go in with the right intention and the right approach based on your integrity and your values. Does that make sense, what I've said? I'm processing it as I've said it out loud, because I really hope it does. So I guess there's two parts to it, and that is, the first is work on you and your beliefs of you, because actually the stronger they become, and I mean to word this correctly, the less it matters what others are thinking, okay? And acknowledge that you can't change their beliefs. But then second part, in terms of what could you do differently, if you can work on that belief for you, could you approach in a different way, have a different maybe conversation? I'm surmising there, not knowing all the context. Does that give a little bit, Cass?
Yeah, no, that definitely helps. I think it's not possible to change other people's beliefs, and nor should one try to be fair. But yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Cool. Anyone else have any other questions?
Stunned silence.
Yeah. If not, I'll try and pick one.
Minara's raised a hand.
Hi, everyone. It was very motivational to hear, and thank you for sharing the information.
Oh, you've gone on mute, Minara.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, so what I wanted to ask you is, like, sometimes it is very difficult to stay motivated throughout. Yeah, because at the beginning of the chat, I mentioned something. Have you started a project? I have started a project, a serious project, personal, which is taking multiple people and international projects. So I'm just liaising with different parts and things to set up a small business for me. So that is how this started. Yeah. And to liaise with the people and to see different parties and get information to put together for a project, it is time consuming. And unless you stay focused all the time and consistently, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I work based on goals, because when I finish, that's me, which is very bad quality. I start something and then I said, what's next? So that kind of self-motivates me. So I'm thinking, okay, let me do something. But there are times when the motivation behaves like a yo-yo, 1 minute up, 1 minute down. And 1 minute you said, you know what, I've given up on everything. So this is very challenging. And I agree with your example that once you start walking through the forest, you can create a path. This is how it is actually. We don't, and I do see that one and I can recognize, but it's very easy for us not to have that walk through the forest to create a path. You know, you can get tired.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what, everything is negative, let's pack up. So yeah, that's my question.
So I think the question you're asking me is, because it can feel like there's, it's very easy to not walk through the forest and create the path. Yeah. And I guess again, there are a little bit of two answers here, but my first and foremost answer would be with anything when it comes to motivation. Okay. We don't do anything unless it has a benefit to us. We don't realize that. And even the bad things we do, I've said bad, that was not a great word to use. Even the things we do that aren't helping us usually have a benefit, or we realize aren't helping us get to where we want to. They have a benefit. They might keep us safe. They might keep us, in the comfort zone versus out the comfort zone. So the key to anything when it comes to motivation is to be really clear. Why does this matter to you? What difference is it actually going to make? Because that's what you have to come back to when you're in the midst of trying to prioritize and work out, where do I put my energy? If something really, and there is a bit of if we're honest with ourselves, and we've all got examples in our lives, if something really matters to you, you make it happen. So the key is always to come back to, and we lose sight of why things matter to us. We start out with absolute clarity, but then life at us, and other business at us, and people at us. And before we know it, we've forgotten what we were actually doing this for. We have to, in anything, whether it's a get fit goal or a business goal, actually really reconnecting on a regular basis with, why did I start this? Why did I do? Why is this important to me? Why does it matter? Is how we keep the motivation, because that's the key to everything. And so that's the most simple answer I can give to that. There's other pieces there that are probably more practical pieces, but I'd bring it back to that as a starting point. If you are having difficulty staying motivated, the key is to reconnect with, why does this matter to you? Why is it important? Right back to that bit at the beginning around, what is success to you? Why does this matter to you? Because if we're not clear on what success looks like, we don't do it. That's when we stop going for the walk and finding the new path. Does that make sense?
I think you're true. It's like what we have to get to our core saying that why I'm doing this. I think we should keep that focus. Like, absolutely, this is the reason why we are doing this. I think that's the one will keep us grounded. That's all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking. Any other questions at all? I'm looking at two screens.
Assumingly not, but one more. Mahit.
Hi, Shelley. Thanks for the session. Really good. I think I've engaged with some content previously as well around mindset, belief, and the rest of it. And so I think something that came up, which maybe you covered in the beginning, I wasn't here for the first 10 minutes, was around, I guess, the nervous system. And would you say that's also important? And would you be able to share some stuff on that?
So yes, I believe it's important. It's not part of the work I do. So that's a whole other category, a whole other subject matter. I think you might have seen something in some content I put out recently, someone else commented, but look, there's increasing research, study, work, people leading in that field around the nervous system, the mind, the body, the whole connection piece. My work, my expertise is in the mindset connection to practical life. So if I'm really honest, I'm probably not the best person to give you an answer on that. I will say, I believe there's an importance to it and have a curiosity there. And I have, contacts that work in that field, but it's not what I bring into my work. Is that a fair answer?
Hi, Shelley. There was one interesting question that came through on the Zoom form, and it said, how do you, bear with me 1 second. How do we install this like courageous thinking into our younger future workforce?
Great question. I'm just writing it down so I make sure I stay on point. So it's a brilliant question. And I guess I would say as a starting point, as a leader of big teams in the past, I know the responsibility, and there used to be a great phrase, shadow of the leader. I would say as a starting point, lead by example in it, and actually be open and honest. So if you do this work for you, you can share that, because it's all about, I think I've used the phrase a few times, awareness is the first step of change. Now, I could go on a very different tangent around perhaps the younger workforce, but what I would say is actually help them understand their, you know, how all of this works, help them understand or start understanding, thinking, getting some knowledge around their beliefs, and have an acknowledgement and understanding of very different sets of beliefs in different generations. I often talk about, like, you know, if I think back to my grandparents and the belief system of that generation, my parents, I've mentioned my dad a couple of times today, versus the world I live in, versus my nieces and nephews, the next generation, we are all bringing very different belief systems into the current world with us. And I think a bit like when Cass asked the question, we can't change people's beliefs, but what we can do is have compassion and understanding that others have different belief systems, help them have awareness of theirs, and then maybe take the conversation to the next level of how do we bring those two pieces together and make it work. And this is, you know, this is absolutely, I mean, whoever shared that question, this is some of the work I've done when I've gone and supported teams, actually helping them understand one another and building that awareness in team dynamic, because that's when we can really start to change the game. We cannot enforce our beliefs upon others. So what we have to do is help them understand their own and the impact of those, not necessarily just on themselves sometimes, but on the wider business. Does that answer the question, Mary?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I'll definitely try with my team. Give it my best. Well, thanks so much, Shelley. Like, obviously, it's been great having you speak with everyone, and hopefully it's been really beneficial for those who have listened and those who will watch the recording as well. So thanks everyone for attending, and have a great end to the week.
Thank you.